Literally, like if you look at your wealthy clients, you look at your ideal client avatar, they do not care what something costs. If they did, they wouldn't live in a $3 million house. They wouldn't have a $100,000 car and a $300,000 car. They do not care what things cost. They only care what things are worth. And so if you have like worth and price, like worth and value. As soon as what they think is worth and the value exceeds what it's worth to them, the price, like they pull the trigger every single time.
Hello, welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering landscapers, hardscapers, and outdoor living professionals. I'm Joshua Gillow. My mission through this show is to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is striving to grow their company well past the $1 million line, but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. Here in Outer Spaces, we are passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. With nearly 3 decades of experience designing, selling, and building 6-figure outdoor living spaces, I've made all the mistakes. Starting with $0 in my pocket, and through the grace of God and a ton of hard work, I now own multiple businesses that afford me the time with my family and the lifestyle I've always dreamed of. So join me as I share what I've learned along my journey, strategies, and other contractor success stories right here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello, welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and this week, Ryan Lee rejoins me as we take on the topic of how to increase your price. Listen, guys, I know how tough it is out there in the world trying to get what you're worth and to charge accordingly to make sure you can help grow your business. And, this week we're going to unpack why contractors charge less than what they should and how you can fix that problem, how you can finally charge what you're worth and to get the world to pay for it. So, guys, if that's something you struggle with, keep on listening. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Ryan Lee is back with me this week. And last week, if you didn't get a chance to take a listen, go back and listen. We talked a lot about how to handle sales objections. Those, we need to think about it. You're too expensive. I need to talk to my spouse. Like all those things that you hear clients tell you, which is absolute and utter bullshit. But how do you work through that? How do you help clients see your value? So if you haven't listened, go back to listen to last week's episode. But this week, we're going to jump into how to increase your price. And I think every contractor out there would love to know the secrets, the holy grail to increasing their price. And that's why I brought Ryan back on here to discuss this topic. And we're going to go, I have a feeling we're going to go pretty deep here, Ryan. So I hope you're buckled up for this one. But so much of going, asking for your price is understanding what you're worth. Oh, goodness. So Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, man. I loved last week's episode. I love geeking out literally on pricing and sales. And so I'm like, when you're like, dude, let's geek out about pricing and sales. I'm like, duh. I want to just do this all day, every day. These are the easiest topics for me. And the thing I love about pricing is there's a lot of different ways to improve your business. Sales is one of them, marketing, recruiting, training, but pricing is literally the easiest lever to pull. And like the leverage is like, basically doing an input and getting more than one input and maximizing those outputs. So if you can spend 1 minute of time on something but get 60 minutes of output, like that's a huge leverage. And pricing allows you to leverage your business. And it's so easy, you guys. So I'm excited to share some principles and some things that just make it so much easier for people, because most people think it's really hard. It's like, wow, my competition's charging this. I'm already the most in my market, all that stuff. So this is such a great topic.
Absolutely, man. I'm certainly happy that you're here to help us unpack it. Man, I can remember so clearly back when my early days when I would go out to clients' houses and we were just designing. I was sketch designing on a piece of vellum back then, doing, had little stamps, and I'd stamp the thing with like these little rubber stamps, and I would trace them and I would draw out the patio, and then I would take colored pencils and I would color in the plantings and made it look all really nice. And it was makeshift as you can get, but it worked. But what amazed me, dude, is I would go from, to a client's house, and after talking to him, I had no sales, anything. I just went and talked and just used my award-winning personality to hopefully close the sale. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, dude. None whatsoever. And I would talk to people until they'd say yes to me. And sometimes that yes was a false yes, and sometimes that it came with a check. And anyway, my point in saying this is I couldn't believe when a client would open up their checkbook, Ryan, and they would stroke a check for like $10,000, $5,000. I could not, I sat there in awe thinking, what do these guys do? Like, are they millionaires? How do they have $5,000 or $10,000 sitting in a bank account for outdoor living stuff? Like, I could not understand it because I certainly did not. I grew up with no money, right? To have $500 in my account, I was doing really good. I was paycheck to paycheck. So to think someone has $10,000 sitting in an account blew my mind. And I got nervous thinking, like, am I responsible enough to manage this much money? Like, this is a lot of money. Like, how does this work? I have no problem spending $50,000 on a truck. Like, that didn't bother me. But the idea of handling someone else's money like this was nerve wracking. And I'm like, well, am I charging enough? Am I not am I charging too much? And how do I justify they're giving me $10,000, dude? So it took a while to start working through my own poor money mindset in order to help figure out what or how do I start to value myself in these environments? How do I price my projects when some of it's hard cost, the materials, labor, whatever it might be. But what about profits? Like, how much should I add to my project on profit? Am I being too greedy? Am I not being greedy enough? Is greedy even the right word for this? Like, there's just so much that goes on in your head when it comes to pricing projects that they don't talk about, that we need to have a conversation about. So hopefully one listener listens and says, wow, okay, that's how I feel too. And now I finally have some light that I'm not the only one that has that problem. So has that ever been something, have you ever experienced that, Ryan?
Yeah, you basically just described my exact experience. So yes.
So there's two of us. I like this.
I mean, dude, it's all like that. Like, if you're in this industry, if you're in this business, you didn't start it because you're rich. Like, you didn't start because you grew up like on a yacht and like, touring Europe and stuff. And like, these are easy things for you. So I think all of us kind of relate, because that's, you said it a couple times, is like, when you start talking about money and price and charging, the number one word that comes to mind is greed. And you're like, oh man, am I taking advantage of people who greed? And it's normally because, like, we grew up without money. I grew up with a single mother, and luckily we had enough money to like have a place to live and food. Like, we weren't homeless, right? But there was no like money for outdoor living. First of all, what is outdoor living? Landscape lighting? What is landscape lighting? We weren't on that plane to even know what that stuff was. So when you hear
outdoor living was living in a Maytag box under the bridge.
Exactly.
That wasn't a choice.
It doesn't cost $10,000. It's free. You get it at the cardboard box behind the dumpster, So like, it's normal actually to have those thoughts, and you shouldn't feel bad because you think those things, but you should want to change it. And honestly, like, there's so much to unpack there, but most of the time it comes to do with our childhood, how we were raised, the environment we were in. And, I have a religious background, so it's like, money's the root of all evil. And then you're like, wait a minute, I have $10,000. Am I evil? And when I have $20,000, am I 2 times as evil? Like, what's happening here? Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. But honestly, if you're a business owner, okay, and you're not, like, your number one job is to not run out of money. There's a lot that goes into that, but look at the failure rate and the success rate of small businesses. Like, most of them don't work out, and the reason they don't work out is because of money. Like, they run out of money. And so honestly, you're doing a disservice to your existing team, your family, your clients, if you're not charging a premium price. And there's a couple of things we can talk about on how to help you come up with what your price should be, but it's usually like 2 or 3 times what you think it is. It's way higher than what you think it is now. And it's for a lot of different reasons, but pricing is one of the easiest things to fix. The hardest part is the mindset, but we can talk about some tools that you can use to help you overcome that mindset as well.
No, I definitely want to go there for sure in this segment, because it's very, very important. And I'm hoping just one person out there says, wow, okay, now I finally have a path forward. That's really what it is. So when it comes down to it, how do most contractors determine their price at this point that you've seen, Ryan?
Well, most people are like what I did, and you just call the local competition. Or if like you don't have a house or you don't want them to know, you have like a friend call and get a quote. And you're like, so how much was it?
Yeah.
What did they say? And did you record it? You forgot to record it? But here's the thing. Most people are literally just being like, in my market, the going rate is this. And I'm like, in your market, like, that doesn't even make sense, because like that, your competition, you're pricing based on your competition, and guess how they're pricing? They're pricing based on you, which was actually based on them. So it's like this never ending cycle of stupidity,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't charge based on someone else's numbers. And that's a huge problem. You got to price it based on one, what does it cost you to run a business now, but what is it going to cost you to run a business in the future? See, when I started, I did all the things wrong. So my coaching program is basically like, here's what not to do, because I've done all the bad things. And I was like, this was my pitch. This is embarrassing. But I would tell people like, hey, we are just as good as the other guys. In fact, we're better than the big guys because we're on our toes. We're young, we're hustlers, we're new. These other guys, they're on their heels. They rely on word of mouth. They got all this other stuff. But we're like half their price because we don't have the overhead that they have. Like, look at their big facility and look at all this, and they have more trucks and vans, insurance. We're going to pass those savings along to you. That's a terrible pitch.
No, for sure.
It might work. It worked, right? It worked for me. But then all of a sudden I found myself not being able to afford to hire someone to answer the phones. I couldn't afford to hire another installer. I couldn't afford to grow. And so the tip here is like price like who you want to be, not like who you are today. And if you can kind of understand what it's going to cost you to have an office, to have a warehouse, to have 16 vans or whatever it's going to take to be who you want to be, that's how you have to start pricing. And that makes it a lot easier to start to not feel greedy, because you're actually operating a business now that provides support to not just your teammates, your clients, but to like the community. And think about the ripple effect that one small business has when you're buying from suppliers, vendors, and then you're like supporting all these families in a community that are frequenting like, retail shops and grocery stores and all these things. Like, it's huge, right? So that's one of the things that has helped me.
And I love that because that's very similar to the same line that I've discovered along the way too. In the beginning, if you're just thinking you're Scrooge McDuck and you're out there trying to make all this money and putting it and just jumping into it on your bed at night or whatever, right? And trying to like just hoard it all for yourself, then yes, I can see where that guilt will come in, that greed would come in, and that's not a great place to be. But when you start thinking about the profit you make in your business is the lifeblood that allows it to grow. And to not have profit is to like not feed your family or yourself, because then your body can't grow, right? So thinking about profit as being a way or a tool in order to allow more people to become more of what they already are in a great way. So if you think of the business as being a vehicle to help others with their dreams get there faster, because it's just a bigger stage to be on, it certainly helps when it comes to when you ask Mrs. Jones for 10% more than you did the last Mrs. Smith, right? For the same basic project. You're like, well, at 10%, it's not going to just be going into my pocket so I can be richer. This 10% is going into the fact that now I can build out my office to be more efficient so that my employees my team members can live happier lives and do their job much more efficiently and effectively and bring more joy to them. And that we can actually have a company banquet at the end of the year, or we can get together as a group and go climb a mountain or whatever it might be for you. Those things all come from the profit side, and you can't build a team if you're constantly pinching pennies and not thinking of this bigger than just making money. It has to be, the business becomes that vehicle to help others achieve their dreams too. And that's when that happens. That's when profits are like, well, we need to make, whatever, 30, 40, 50 or 80% on this project to make that happen for our team. And then to your point, the ripple effect. You start thinking, all right, well, when I buy from my suppliers, their families get paid, not paid, but they get a wage. They can take their families out to the movies, to all these other things, right? And that's how it all works. It's about serving, and it's about giving, right? It's not about hoarding. And that's what it is. If your mindset is always about, I got to keep every dollar that I ever made, that's not a good way to think. That's a way that's going to make you feel very empty inside. It's when you say, look, if I make $10 and I can give away $2, that's amazing.
Yeah.
If I can give away $8, that's when you start feeling that joy and fulfillment inside of you. It's in the giving, not in the taking, that fills your soul with joy in life.
And honestly, you're doing a huge disservice to everybody by giving people a deal, by being the low price leader, by feeling like you're greedy. Because if you can't afford to answer that customer's phone that phone call with a smile and be like, what can we do for you today? And if you're dreading it, because I've been there, and you're like, crap, they're calling again. Like, we can't afford, dude, we didn't charge enough. We can't afford to go back out there. Tell her if we want to come back out, it's going to be this. Like, dude, that's a terrible service. Like, do it right the first time. And it's sad because a lot of people don't, like literally 99% of people don't understand this concept. And then homeowners, again, like we talked about on the last episode, they're not educated enough to know. So they think, well, I'll just go with this guy. He seems like the same, but half the price. But then they expect the result to be that 5-star red carpet, white glove experience. It's like, let's face it, you can't afford to give the red carpet, white glove experience on a budget price. Like, you just can't. And so you've got to understand this concept. Did you know that, like, well, I don't even know what the actual numbers are, but let's just say that like the average business out there is making 20%, which some people are like, dude, I'm making 45%. I'm like, listen, no, you're not. You're probably not even making 20. 20, I'm being generous. But if they're making 20%, like net, like after they pay themselves, after they pay all their bills, and a lot of people aren't paying themselves in this number, which is why 20% is generous. But if you raise your price by just 10%, just 10% on all things new moving forward, that means you're going to literally add 50% to your bottom line, because what you were making 20, that instant 10% goes up. So you're literally adding 50%, right, of your profits. Like, that's huge. And if you're only making 10% and you raise your price by 10%, you just doubled your profits. Like, you doubled your profits in one single move. That is huge for people to understand the leverage here, like the result of just one thing. And it's very powerful. And then all of a sudden you have money to be able to start giving a better quality product, better service. You have less callbacks. All of a sudden some of these problems start to disappear in your business. You can afford to hire higher quality talent instead of complaining, oh, that guy wants 25 an hour for entry level. Yeah, he does. Like, let's give him 30. Like, let's figure out a way to build this so it's easy on us instead of fighting this uphill battle.
You're so right with that. And it's so true. If you don't have that lifeblood, that profit moving through the business, then you can't do these things. And you're going to be handicapped throughout the entire process of growth, or you won't be able to grow at all. You're going to be stuck or stagnated. This also works with discounts. So often contractors will give prices. And I used to do this too. I'd be like, all right, well, it's $45,318 for the project. And the client's like, can you do it for 42? And I'd be like, if I do it for 42, they'll say yes. So
sounds good.
I'll make it up somewhere. We'll move faster. We'll get the product cheaper. We'll do something different. And every single time, it didn't work out that way. Every single time. And what I didn't realize back then, Ryan, is that discount that I gave that client, that roughly $3,000 discount that I gave them, came off my profit, because everything else costs the same. My materials, my labor, all of that stuff, equipment, it all costs the same, but I just made less. And that $3,000, it could be 5, 8, 10% of that target, right? Of our target profit side, maybe it's 20%, right? So it's like, whoa. So I just basically ripped any profit that I now could build my company with out of my pocket because Mrs. Jones asked for a discount. And the crazy part, Ryan, she would have said yes to the original price.
100%,
all
dude.
Of
like
that.
The thing is, we're not running charities here. Like, these are actual businesses that are for profit, but suddenly you just turn it into a charity. And it's like, that's great. That's because you care about people and you think you're doing the right thing, all this other stuff. But some people in that experience, Josh, they'll actually buy cheaper materials thinking, well, I got to make the $3,000 somewhere. So, she wanted a deal, she's going to get a deal, but I'm not going to lose money. But is that really doing the right thing? Now you're going to have cheaper products that are going to have more problems, more callbacks, and you're going to pay for it one way or the other. A 1-star review, a negative shout out on Facebook, like something's going to happen. And it's just not worth it. And like the profit thing is just so real. So I love that you shared that. I can't remember what I was going to say about that.
Well, when it comes to profit, when it comes to profit, it's about, how do you justify, right? I like to justify anything that I like to buy. I like to understand why I want to buy it. What kind of value do I get? How does it make my life better? Is it a good investment? All these kinds of things, right? Clients do the same things for outdoor living. And if they can't discern a difference between you, let's just say we're competitors in the market, Ryan, you and me, and they're looking for a paver patio, some landscape lighting, and a seating wall. Keep it simple. And you say, yeah, no problem, Mrs. Jones. Here's your proposal. It says paver patio, seating wall, landscape lighting. And you say, all right, Mrs. Jones, here's what you asked for: paver patio, seating wall, and landscape lighting. And my price is $15,200 and yours is $14,100. The client's going to be like, well, dude, they're the same. So why would I pay more for the same? Now,
Right.
I might be out offering tons more value, but I didn't talk about it. You might not be, or you may be. I don't know, right? The thing is, the client has no way of knowing which is the better choice. So price is the only thing left to determine. So it's our job as sales professionals, as guides, to help the client understand why that is. And it's not about you standing on your soapbox and telling them about how freaking amazing you are and all the awards you got and how many years you've been doing this and how every client loves you and how you go to everybody's weddings and like all this bullshit. Like, that's not the point. The point is, clients want to know why they should pay more. And if you can't give them a good reason for that without trying to make it look like it's you, meaning you personally, then the next thing you know, they don't have another choice. You've given them no other options. But if you do what we call value stacking, if you give them the opportunity to see why working with your company would benefit them and answer the number one burning question in their mind, what's in it for me? Why would I pay more? If you can set up a decent case for that, most clients will pay more for that because they don't want to lose what they would lose if they don't go with a little bit more expensive option. So this is all, it's a much bigger topic, but the concept of value stacking, instead of saying, hey, Ryan, we offer three-dimensional design. Yeah, you know what? Everybody else does too.
Cool. Good story.
Right. Yep. Story, end of story. Oh, well, you know what? Now back to our conversation, right, with Mrs. Jones. We both are competitors, and I offer 3D design, and you offer 3D design. And she's like, well, he's almost 1,000 less, and he offers 3D design too. So there's no discernible difference between these two. So I'll just go with the cheaper one. So that's on us as guides if we aren't giving them value. So here's how you might reframe that in the value side with the value stack. So instead of a three-dimensional design, and that's what you offer, you would say something like, oh, Mrs. Jones, we offer full color three-dimensional designs that we can show you how all the pieces of your project are going to fit together. So you never have to live with the regret of making quick decisions that'll haunt you for years to come. It's a little different than we offer 3D design, isn't it?
Big time.
And if you do that in layers, in the front side of your conversation with your client, and you do that in layers, the next thing you know, they're like, oh my goodness, if I don't go with this guy, I'm going to get screwed by somebody else. And It's not manipulation. It's simply telling the truth. And others might be offering exactly the same thing, but they're not value stacking it. They're not spinning it from the perspective of your prospect. They're not spinning it around and saying, what's in it for me from the client side, without the client having to burn calories to figure it out. So many designers want to come in and start talking shop. Oh, wow. Bigger the words, the better. I'm sure you've met them, right? The bigger the words, the better. Like, oh, we're going to come in and design this outdoor living space. So we have these prestigious blocks on the ground, and we're going to have this amazing, alluring light for the backdrop. And we're going to have nice harmony and melody throughout the entire, like all this foofy-nish, stupid stuff. And the clients, they're lost like 3 sentences before trying to figure out what the hell you're even talking about. And you're like, wow, he's really can talk really well. This is amazing. But they're asking the question, so why do I care about that? What's in it for me with these amazing pavers? Like, why do I care? I just want a paver patio. So my point is, if you can get to the point and keep it simple for your clients not to burn a ton of calories to figure out what you're saying and how it benefits them, the entire game changes. Even if you're offering exactly what your competitor is offering, you now stand higher in their minds because you've actually answered a lot of those objections that are going to come up later early. And they're like, wait a minute here, that makes perfect sense. That's why I need a 3D design. I don't want a 3D design. I want his 3D design because it solves my problem that I didn't even know I had.
Exactly. Well, I learned this years ago that actually people don't care what stuff costs. And it's hard to understand that because you're like, yeah, they do. I just had a guy tell me it was too much money, or I told me that they couldn't afford it or whatever, right? But literally, like if you look at your wealthy clients, you look at your ideal client avatar, they do not care what something costs. If they did, they wouldn't live in a $3 million house. They wouldn't have a $100,000 car and a $300,000 car. They do not care what things cost. They only care what things are worth. And so if you have like worth and price, like worth and value, as soon as what they think is worth and the value exceeds what it's worth to them, the price, like they pull the trigger every single time. Like every single time. They only care what it's worth. And so you got to understand that like throwing a price and say, okay, outdoor living equals $126,000. Like you might get lucky on a couple people if they already like you and like they got, the Joshua Gillow personality like you talked about. Like you probably won some deals early on because you're like, hey, I'm awesome, right? But if you want to scale, like you've got to understand this value stack that you're talking about. And there's lots of different ways to do it, just even expounding on what you already offer. But instead of just showing them one price, like, what is the value that they're getting? Like, show them what they're getting. So like in landscape lighting, I used to tell people, yeah, it comes with the transformer has a lifetime warranty. The fixtures have a 20-year warranty. It's like, cool story. Right. But what is that worth? Again, they care about what it's worth. The manufacturer doesn't charge me to give a lifetime warranty and a 20-year warranty. Like those, that's just included with the price, right? But the value, what is the value of having a 20-year warranty on 62 fixtures? There is a value there. Like there's no price, but there's a value. So I'll show them that's a $1,500 value. That's a $2,600 value. Oh, we're also going to do a 6-month maintenance plan for you, included, no charge, but the value is this. And what's crazy, when I used to tell people all the stuff that we did, but that's just like telling them like the features, show them the value and you stack that. And again, it could be the exact same thing that your competition is offering, but you show them the value of this huge stack. Oh my gosh, it changes everything. And another thing I'll tie into there, if you want to build relationships, which is, we're going to talk about this on another episode about high quality leads, but in your value stack, you could say, yeah, we've got like a bunch of relationships with other local professionals. So you also get a free irrigation checkup. You get a free electrical checkup. These are $350 values. Oh, I noticed you guys have a pool. This guy will give you 3-month pool service, which is a $450 value. So your offer stack could show that they're getting like literally like $100,000 worth of value for only $62,000. Like they feel dumb for not moving forward just because of the other add-ons they're getting for free, right?
Yeah. Yep. There's no doubt. And the value stack could be its episode alone. I mean, that is one of the big differentiators between the professionals and the amateurs out there in the sales world for sure. And it's such a simple process to learn and to integrate into your thing. We teach it at Yes Express all the time as part of our core curriculum, because it is so important for businesses to be able to differentiate themselves by what they're doing already, but doing it in a way that is right to them and that helps their clients see because clients are trying to simplify an extremely, in their own minds, very complex thing that's about to happen, their backyard space being transformed, right? We do it all the time. It's simple. To them, it is like brain surgery or building a pyramid. Like it is insanely complicated. So our job as guides is to simplify the complicated to a point where they can digest it quickly and see what's in it for them, like that. And when you value stack, like Leah's, or like, Ryan is, I see your last name there. So anyway, Ryan says there, it is so important because they start to see so much value and they feel crazy not saying yes. So you don't have to close them.
That's the thing. When you use some of these tools,
themselves.
Yeah. There's so many ways to make this game easy. And so it's like, after a while, after I got good at business, like before I thought I was good, but then once I actually got good, like I almost felt bad for my competition. I'm like, you guys, like you're making this easy. Like I would intentionally have people get quotes ahead of me because it was just like, oh, that guy, I love it when he goes and gives quotes ahead of me. He's like my setup guy. Yeah. Like I need him. I need him to go do his thing. Yeah. Otherwise my presentation isn't quite as powerful. I'm like, have you gotten a quote from so-and-so yet? Yeah, call them first.
Well, it's funny because a good friend of mine just sent me a quote from he's out in the Chicagoland area, and he sent me a quote, said, hey, I want to have some work done on my house. He's not in the outdoor living world. And he said to me, this thing is, here's the quote that I got. What do you think? Is it a good value for, and I'm like, all right. So obviously they didn't do a great job value stacking, or you wouldn't be asking me this question. He's just looking for a second opinion. I said, So did they give you a design for the space? He's like, yeah. And he sent me over this little cocktail napkin doodle sketch. And I was thinking like, oh, I thought we came so much further than that, right? In general. So it's basically the proposal is like 7 lines. It's like, move block wall, rebuild patio, add these pavers, add landscaping, put up structure, like basic stuff. And at the end, like $53,000. And he's like, is this a good value? I'm like, how the hell would I ever know? Like, what? You're giving me a list of materials. You're not telling me how it's going to be built, because that is a massive difference. There's a massive difference whether that person's going to come in and just, bubble gum this whole thing together and run with a check, or whether they're going to spend some time and do it right. There's not enough information. So the funny part is this contractor put my client in a position where he has to go look for professional advice. So he doesn't trust this guy to start with. The
Yeah.
price looks good,
Not a good
but he
start.
doesn't know if he's going to get, shaken by this guy. So he asked me my opinion. I'm like, first of all, I'd want to know, how are they going to build this? And I want a lot more than just some handwritten proposal with a cocktail napkin sketch before I'd be spending $50 some $1,000s with somebody. That's my opinion of things, because I know how fast in the building industry things can go sour or south. Expectations are not set up in the front. They're going to be definitely not met in later. That is a whole other episode, setting expectations, right? And so I'm just looked at it. I'm like, I thought we were past this, guys, in the industry. I thought we were past, at least have a QuickBooks or some kind of spreadsheet, something that looks professional with a nice letterhead on top, not something you're handwriting. When you do a design, do something that looks nice. Actually, like laying it out. If it's simple, that's fine, but do something that looks professional. It was all hand sketched. And then it was just like, the average dimensions of the structure itself and nothing else. He's like, here you go, it's 50 grand. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, my anxiety went through the roof. I'm like, how do you know what you're even buying except for a couple of pallets of pavers and maybe some know-how?
Yeah, exactly.
My goodness. This contractor forced my friend into a position where he had to go out and justify the buy to somebody else. That's doing our clientele a disservice. Our job is to slow it the hell down, talk less, listen more, and help people at a higher, deeper level. Once you do that and that becomes your commitment, game over. It changes immediately.
And it's hard to raise your price. I mean, for me, I'm telling people every day, raise your price, raise your price. But if you're not raising your value, then it's just not going to work. I mean, there's a correlation, right? So once you raise your value, then you determine your price. Like I don't ask people what their budget is, because like that's irrelevant to me at this time. And I'll tell you a tip I use to help with that, to help kind of come out with what the budget is. Because what happens, like if you ask someone what their budget is, like what's the answer usually?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to throw you a curveball here. We get budget every time, and it's an honest budget. We have a 3-step process that gets it every time for clients. So, but
the real world,
fast.
If
the real world, yeah.
Someone who hasn't gone through your training, if you just go and ask someone cold today, what's your budget? What is the answer you usually get?
Oh, much lower and unrealistic.
Yeah, I'm not saying going through your process, like the average person, right? They're like, what's your budget? And like sometimes they're like, I don't know. That's why we're calling you, or we're just not sure. Or they're like a number that's just, maybe it's real. We don't really know. It's just a fake number. It's just a number at that point.
Yep.
One of the things I like to do is called the price marinade. And what this is throwing out it's not completely a decoy offer. It's kind of a combination of a decoy offer and a price marinade is throwing out what the project is going to be. And this is scary for a lot of people because they're like, well, I don't know what it's going to be, because what if they want the Taj Mahal and all this other stuff, right? So you got to be careful on how you do this. In landscape lighting, it's pretty easy because we throw out a number like, hey, an average landscape lighting job for that area is around $8,000 to $10,000. And you could do that on the initial phone call, and you'll get a reaction out of people. Oh, that's a lot more than we thought it was going to be, or no, that makes we thought it would be somewhere around there. And the reason this is important is because, like, let's say outdoor living, and if my average project was $150,000, I would tell them my average project is $150,000. I mean, it doesn't, whatever your number is, it is a number.
Yeah.
And it starts the conversation. And when you throw that out, a lot of times you'll get a reaction and they'll say, well, it was a lot higher than we thought it was going to be. Oh, well, how much did you think it was going to be? When you ask them that's a different question than saying, what is your budget? But a lot of times they're a lot more vulnerable and a lot more honest with you. And then you that doesn't mean that's the price you have to stick to, but you've already implanted a number in their mind. And so it gives them a frame of reference. So as long as don't shoot yourself in the foot here, as long as you throw out a number that's higher than what you're going to be, you have a lot better odds of going in and closing that deal.
No, 100%. And when you do that, and sometimes you can even get a little more extreme and do an extreme anchor where it's like, yeah, guys, it's not going to cost you $100,000 for this lighting, thinking it's going to be 10, right? You set that expectation. They're like, there's no way. Only irresponsible people would do that. And then they've at least had a chance to process that. And if you're going to tell them, to your point, 8,000 to 10,000, and it should be 6,000 to 8,000, then sweet. Then when you come in with a $7,500 proposal, they're going to be like, well, wow, that's actually less than he expected. I expected it to be based on his range. And like, where do I sign? So you have the opportunity to set that. But what's most powerful is when the client gives you the number, right? A client says, hey, we're probably like 8 to 10 grand we could put into this. Then it's their number. It's their ownership of that. And if you can meet that, that's great. If not, you're gonna have to set their expectations correctly. So, and there's processes to do all these things that are, definitely morally, but when it comes down to it, it is about being honest in guiding clients. Ultimately you need to ask yourself, are you trying to take advantage of clients or are you trying to serve them? That's a big question. Are people just looking out there that are, selling? Are they looking to just say, I need to make all this money. I need to make this nut this year. That's my budget. I got to get it done. And then your clients are just the stepping stones, if you will, to that goal. You're going to treat people very differently if that's your focus versus how can I serve this client at the highest level? And in better service comes a higher profit.
Love
That's
that.
a very different way to see it.
Yeah, big time. I love it.
Yeah. So Ryan, thank you for being on here and going through this. Hopefully the listeners have picked up a lot. There's just so many gold nuggets that are in here. But thank you for doing that. And, at the end of the day, guys, the lesson here is if you don't think you're worth it, neither do your clients. And if you go out there with your hands, in your pockets and your head down and you're like, all right, it's going to be $20,000 for this. You don't want to buy from me, do you? If your body language says that, you're doomed from the beginning. When your shoulders are back, your head's up straight, and you come out and you say, tell me, Mrs. Jones, what are you thinking here? And start leading with great questions. She's going to, unfurl that onion for you. That flower will open like crazy. And next thing you know, you can actually go in there and say, you know what? I can actually help you with this problem. Or you know what? We're not the best fit. I actually have a good friend or someone I can refer you to that's going to help a lot more than I can. So we are, as a servant, as a guide, that's part of this. You're going to have to say no too at times if it doesn't fit your model or what you can do. So don't be afraid to say no to your client. This is a two-way street. Because I called you doesn't mean you have to perform for them. This is not the circus.
Along those lines, the way that math works is you can afford to raise your price up to 10%, which, dude, everyone should have raised their price more than 10% with the economy and everything else. But even today, even if you just raised your price 3 months ago, you're like, I already did that, Josh. Like, I already know this stuff. Just do it again, because if you can raise your price by 10% and afford to lose up to 22% of your clients and still make the same amount of profit. Like, think about that. So 20%, I mean, that's Fridays, baby. Like, you get a full day to go fishing, hunting, camping, sleeping in, whatever you want to do. You get that day off and you still make the same amount of money. Or what's not going to happen, you're going to improve your sales process. You're probably going to close more deals because you're getting more confident, and you're still going to have to work Fridays, guys. So I apologize, but you're going to serve that client at a higher level. You're going to bless the lives of your team members. You can go give back to them, do more company parties, build your culture. There's a lot. Trust me, I can spend your profit really quick by helping you build your business, and you don't have to feel guilty because your people are going to love to stay there. They're going to recruit for you. They're going to help you build a business that runs without you doing everything. So profit is so important, you guys. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel greedy for making a profit and running an awesome business.
Brother, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. And if my mic wasn't on a stand, I would drop it right now. So, all right, listeners, hope you got as much as we did from this. Thank you for listening in. Next week, Ryan and I are going to unpack how to increase the number of qualified leads to your business. And we're going to get deep into closing rates and how do you qualify people and what is a qualified lead. And if you're not qualifying people now, we're going to give you a couple of tips on how you can do that. So thank you again for being on, Ryan, and listeners, we'll see you next week.